Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. The deaf community in Limpopo is angry after a fake interpreter was used at another government event. They say the interpreter's gestures were unintelligible. And for more on this, we are joined by Andiswa Gebashe, the South African Sign Language activist, as well as Ntombi Sikuza, also from the SA Sign Language, also an activist there. But of course, we will have both of them in studio, as well as Andiswa, who's the interpreter. Ntombi, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Talk to us. I mean, the outrage in the deaf community comes on the back of one of the biggest outrages in 2013, where we saw a man alongside guests like Barack Obama at former President Nelson Mandela's memorial. You know, who would have thought that we would again experience and learn of another fake interpreter? What does this speak to?
Thank you so much, for this opportunity. The community is enraged with what is happening with the interpreter. I'm not even sure whether it's worth it to call him an interpreter. If you remember, during the memorial service of the former president, Nelson Mandela, the government knew because people did complain. But that's why it's still happening. And no cause was taken after that happened. And that man is not the first time he's been an interpreter at any event. It has happened before, and it's still happening. It's just that this time the video went viral within the community. But maybe when South African Sign Language becomes an official language, there will be regulation that will set, or that would have these measures that if we have somebody who is doing this, that they can be charged. And what he does, he gets away with this because in all the event where he works, there aren't deaf people. So he makes money, he gets paid, and we lose out on information. And that goes against a linguistical human right.
In fact, I'd like us, Ntombi, to perhaps take a look at this video that went viral. Let's take a look.
Shut down that Jerusalem and all our profit value Jerusalem. National Commissioner, give an extra capacity for this province to deal with this Jerusalem. We have been hearing about Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. Shut down the Jerusalem.
Of course, that is the very video that went viral and caused all the outrage, right, Ntombi? Let's perhaps expand a little bit on what is very concerning. You say that it's not the first time that we're seeing this specific interpreter, and it wasn't the first time in 2013 that government had also used that previous man who caused the outrage. I mean, this really is a big concern. Where are the loopholes?
I think the problem is in the agencies, the companies that appoint these interpreters. And because there isn't a system that gets followed, apart from who's the cheapest interpreter, and we will take that company or we will take that. So cheap over quality, these are the results. And these are the things that happen. And those are the systems that are in place. And he's not the only one. There's so many interpreters who do this. And because there isn't a place where we can voice this and for us to complain. And most officials do not know sign language, so there's no way of knowing whether it's a fake interpreter or a qualified interpreter.
From the bit that we saw, what was comprehensible? Like, what of what he was saying made sense?
Oh. He says, JJ, J on the other side. We mustn't tease JJ. So, because when I saw this, I'm like, what is the Minister of Police Beyicele saying? Who is J? And I wasn't aware that he's talking about Jerusalem, because he's only signing the sign JJ. That's the only thing that you can comprehend. You know, the entire message was lost. And again, and then the deaf community lost out on what the minister was saying. And it looked like, is the minister making sense? What is he saying? We know we got problems in this country, but I mean, why is the minister talking about JJ, who's on the other side of the corner?
And this is a serious concern, the fact that the message that was meant to be conveyed was lost.
Yep, exactly. Everything was lost. All the information was lost. And yet, he made money. You know, and it's just not only, it's his entire community. And this is not the first time. This happens in almost every department. In this regard to this clip, the man was just talking about J, that we don't know who is the same with another J.
How much of a difference will, the recognition of of sign language being an official language, how much of a difference will that make? I mean, you speak about how there are many within the system who continue to communicate things that don't make sense, and, the message is completely lost, and the deaf community has no clue what anyone could be saying on such a platform. How much of a difference will officializing it mean?
It would help a lot. Because as it stands, it feels like even the bodies that are meant to promote and protect the languages, they don't have any power. Because it's the very government that infringe on this right. You try to advise them, but there isn't power. It feels like there isn't a political will. So if sign language becomes an official language, because it is on the process of becoming an official language, but once we see it in black and white and it is made an official language, most of these things will stop. And we can even place or go and report to these cases of fraud, because that's what it is. And people are taking advantage because, who cares? It happens all the time. As long as you have someone who's moving their hands and people don't believe it's a real language, a language that stands on its own. So having sign language as an official language would do a lot of good.
It's important that you say people don't believe that it's a real language, because what those who don't understand it would see movement and assume that the message is being conveyed, but in actual fact it isn't. That in itself is really a serious, serious concern.
Yes, that's true. For example, if some people get confused, if you have a language that people are using in township, which is gestures, that's not sign language. They just think it's the same. So there are gestures, and then there's the language, which is South African Sign Language, which is a real language that has everything, sentence, everything that is contained in a language.
And if you had to send out a message of caution and warning, I mean, you said right at the beginning that had this video not gone viral, the outrage wouldn't have been as big as it is, because, not many people would have taken note and really, really escalated it. What advice would you give to government and to those who are posing as interpreters?
What one hopes is that once South African Sign Language becomes an official language, and there will be regulations, there will be law in how to even procure an interpreter, and there will be some form of a license of a practicing. If you're an interpreter there, you can use this license to practice. Because at the moment, anybody with any information of sign language goes out and they pose as a sign language interpreter. If it was a spoken language, this the entire country will be talking about this. Everybody will be angry. But because it's sign language, nobody really takes it seriously. You know, so sign language and any spoken language should have the same status and should have the same respect. Take our language seriously. This is a language that we use every day. It should have the same respect and the same status as any spoken language.
You speak about spoken language, and spoken language has different dialects. How many of the dialects are within sign language? I mean, you also make reference to, you know, perhaps a language in the township where people speak with their hands, but that in itself is not necessarily sign language.
South African Sign Language has dialects. Just like isiZulu would have different dialects depending on isigodi that you come from. The same with South African Sign Language as well. The same rules in your grammar that you have in a spoken language do apply in South African Sign Language.
How many opportunities do you think that officializing the language will have in allowing the sign language to be taken more seriously and a bigger interest for you know, young people who may take an interest in it?
Once it becomes an official language, because it is going to become an official language, yes. Deaf people, you have a person like me doing an interview, there won't be any barriers where you have to speak through another person. I really believe that it would open so many doors, including job opportunities. It will be easy to even identify good and quality interpreters. So as it stands now, we still have many barriers. Once it becomes an official language, including hearing people, it might be included in school as well. So for people to learn sign language and the origin of sign language, including the deaf culture, because no language goes without the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Let me thank you both. Ntombi Sikuza from the SA Sign Language activists, as well as Andiswa Gebashe there interpreting for us. Of course, following the outrage that a fake interpreter was used at another government event. I thank you for your time.